I'm using 1/2 inch PVC pipe, and you want to turn and sand that dowel to where it goes in there smoothly. Keep in mind, this is an extrusion, and the inside diameter of that pipe is going to have some variation to it. So we don't want this too tight. We want to leave room in there for the glue or epoxy, whatever we're using, when we put this together. This does not turn very fast, and we do not have to make it extremely accurate. I cut that dowel into lengths a little under 1 inch long. Take a piece of 1/2 inch pipe that's just a little bit shorter than that dowel. Put some glue or epoxy on here. Take the disc, put that piece of pipe on there, put a clamp on that dowel. That piece of pipe will center that dowel in the disc. Take the pipe off, and the dowel is glued and centered on the disc. All of these discs have a hole that's dead center. I'm doing this on a lathe. You can make a drilling jig or something to suit your purpose on your drill press. And I clamp that in there very gently. This is a M6 bolt. It has a 5mm socket on it, which is identical to what's on the plastic music spools. And I'm using an M6 spacer that's 5mm long. And I have found, after drilling that with a number 2 number drill, thread this in here, you don't even have to tap it. That spacer is a little bit bigger than the head of this bolt. I'm going to turn that down to where it's just a little bit smaller than this head. Just sand that and round over the edge so you don't have any splinters or anything from the plywood. That completes this part of the project. I have the M6 machine screw with a spacer on this side, and only the M6 machine screw on the other side. The socket for this pipe is cut with a laser. That laser is focused, and that depth of focus can be affected by the thickness of the plywood or the flatness of the plywood. So it does have some variation to it, but the average has been about 0.7mm. Music roll is 140mm wide. We want the inside of this spool to be a little bit over that, 140.5, 141 at the most. So if you take 140 and add twice the 0.7mm socket depth on each side. I cut this piece of pipe to 141.6. That's something you can play with. The depth of the socket could vary a little bit, but not much. As long as your pipe is square cut, and I cut this on the miter saw, and your dowels are glued in here square, this should go together very easily. I took the end of the plastic pipe and I went in here with the Dremel tool and I ground some notches around here in about 4 places on the inside. And I put these together with construction adhesive, and that worked very well. Now, that construction adhesive will not stick to plastic, but it will stick to that wood dowel. And with the notches ground in here, that will give some tooth between that dowel and that piece of plastic pipe. And these are quite solid. Those won't come apart. The main difference here is the depth of the socket on this M6 machine screw. It only goes in that far. If we look at a plastic spool, these sockets go all the way through into the pipe. And this does not protrude from the face as much as the plastic spool. And you can see that difference here. And if we look at another type of spool, that difference is about the same. It really doesn't make any difference if you adjust your rewind hex to go into this socket, then it will automatically work just fine with any of the plastic spools. This diameter is slightly smaller than the diameter of this particular pipe on this plastic spool. This will hold any length of music that will fit on a plastic spool. In fact, it'll hold a little more. The diameter of this starts off as 3 1/8. The diameter of this spool is 3.1, and this one is 3.1. After you get through sanding and rounding this over, this ends up being 3.115. And I have seen some of the plastic spools that are actually a bit under 3 inches in diameter. And you'll never have to worry about this cracking or stripping out. I'll chuck one of these up in the lathe. That's about as fast as that'll be turning when you're rewinding. A little bit of a variation here and there. That's plywood. As a comparison, I chucked up a plastic spool. You can see there's a little bit of wobble in these too.